Oh, so it's the whole decor all the way around.
And they use various different fabrics. There's not just this logo. There are other ones they used as well.
Right.
And then inside, I mean, it follows all the way through. 5 latch case, the idiot latch on the back, which always catches you out. Inside.
And there we go. George Harrison. Here we come. Look at that.
So you've got your Diamond single coil pickups.
And again, superb condition, isn't it?
Yeah, nice nick. Nice nick. And, the full case, wine coloured plush, Gretsch, and all the rest of it. And again, quite nice shape. Now, these guitars aren't solid.
Can I feel how light it is? Oh, that's very light.
It's light. It's because they're semi-solid. They're chambered.
Say £7, £6.
Probably about 7, I should think.
So
still in tune.
what year is this?
This is 56. So they came out in 55 and they had the squirrely Gretsch logo at first, but in this configuration. And then the square logo came in 56. Big block inlays, diamond pickups.
These remind me of the early Gibsons and the early Epiphones, actually.
Yeah.
Epiphone, I think.
What I hadn't expected, it's quite a slim and quite a quick neck.
It is, yes.
And classically this is sort of rock and roll, rockabilly, maybe even a countryish guitar. But I took this out to play a blues gig one night about 4 years ago through an overdriven amp, and I kind of thought, a bit chancy, don't know if this is going to work, and it sounded fantastic. Mm-hmm. It really.
Well, users of my channel know that I have a telly. I built myself a telly with one of these pickups in it.
Well.
Interestingly, look at this, guys.
Yeah.
Look at this.
I've got them lifted a lot.
I've never seen that before.
Well, the reason for that is, the whole issue about neck angle on 50s guitars. The Les Paul's too shallow neck angle is famous, but this guitar has got quite a neck angle on it, which means that the Melita bridge is really up quite high, and that means that the neck pickup is probably pretty much in the place it should be, but this pickup really needs bigger shims to bring it up to scratch. But things like these shims, these tortoiseshell shims, are so rare. But Gretsch used to change the configuration of their guitars so often. So they had different pickups, they had different neck inlays, they sometimes just had kind of side dots. They changed bits all the time.
But it's a beautifully ornate guitar, isn't it?
Yeah, really over-engineered. All these are really heavy. Even the switch tip is metal. The cup that holds it's like a Telecaster cup, but smaller. I mean, everything. And also, these probably the first guitar to have screw strap locks.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
These are all standard. I mean, there's lots of great engineering design on these guitars.
And it's a kind of a Les Paul kind of thickness, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very Les Paul-y. The other thing is this isn't black paint. This is they covered these with drum finish. So this is kind of
is it green or blue?
Nitrocellulose. It's black.
It's black. Okay.
This shape of guitar, the white ones are called white penguins. They've got lots of gold on them and a great big paddle headstock, and they're super ridiculous rare and very valuable. And they made a couple of these in green, Cadillac green.
Are they expensive?
Yeah, the 50s ones are. Yeah, they've reissued them. The other story about this guitar is that I lent it to somebody once, and it came back, and he had a very long face because this bridge bar here had collapsed. It had broken in the middle.
Really?
And it's a piece of cast iron metal. It's quite crystalline,
right.
And it literally just shattered. And he didn't really know what to say. And I could say to him, actually, don't worry, because I'd noticed that there was already a crack.
Right.
He just really.
You're a very nice man, Bob.
Well, yeah, I guess other people would have cut up rough and lost a friend out of it, but it wasn't his fault, and it just happened on his watch. It was really unfortunate. So then I had the job of where the hell do you find another one of these bridges? They're so rare, and I got really lucky. I found a guy on eBay who posted, and he said, "Look, I've got the bridge, but I haven't got the components for it." And I went, "Well, it's my lucky day and yours, pal, because I've got all the components. I just haven't got the chassis. All you've got is the chassis." So, you know, I thought that was going to take me 7 years and £1 million to find, and it ended up taking me about 3 months and about 200 quid.
Interesting thing about these pickups, Bob. I know these Dynasonics quite well because I have an original one, a Guild one actually, in my Telecaster, in the bridge position. But also Les Paul on his very first Gold Top had one of these, which was put in the casing of a P90. But it was actually one of these. It wasn't a P90.
And somebody else too. If you look very carefully at the old videos of Jan Akkerman in Focus, you know what a great guitar player he was.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, all those incredible scales and stuff he played. Also the tones he got. So this one is a Gibson pickup in his black Les Paul Custom. This one is one of these.
Oh, right.
Certainly for some of the time. Some of the videos I've seen, it's unmistakable. It's this pickup in the neck position on the Les Paul.
So they're very interesting pickups. There's a certain sound you get out of these that you just can't get.
Yeah.
You know, a P90 is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, well, these are much thinner, reedier sound, aren't they? P90 is much fatter.
Yeah.
Consistent with the fact that, you know, Gretsch were kind of making for twangy guitar players, whereas Gibson was still really making jazz guitars in their minds. So that's the sensibility that informed the pickups.
But it's a very usable guitar, isn't it?
It is a nice guitar. It's very usable. It surprised me. I thought this was kind of, you know, one of the things to have in my set for completism, but actually I use it a lot. Particularly the middle position. It's just so gleamy.
Wow.
There you are. This is a Guild M75 Aristocrat. In these days, plastics were quite new technology and quite unstable. So these plastics, these are both original pickups. But look at the colours. They're completely different.
And they're more white. They're not the yellow stain there.
That one's really stayed quite white, but this one's gone quite, you know, like an old tooth.
Oh, right.
Kind of ivory. So, but you know, these pickups were made by a company called France. So they look inside like P90s, they look outside like P90s. They don't sound much like P90s. They're not very high output, but Larry Carlton used one of these.
Did he really?
From some, I don't know how old it was. He called it his Blues Bird, which is the nickname for the guitar. And they do make, through a little bit of drive, they've got a really nice tone.
These are the most beautiful knobs I've ever seen.
But of course the guitar's a complete nightmare if the pots or anything go wrong, because the only way you can get to these is through here, and you have to have very, very small hands indeed. So your luthier will not like this because there's no access plate.
Oh.
Okay.
How light is it? Can I just see?
It's light.
Oh, it's 6.
Yeah, probably 6, because it's hollow. This is a really hollow guitar. But not in great shape. These guitars, very rare to find one of these in good shape. You always get some cracking around here. You maybe get some cracking around the jack, which you haven't got here. This one has definitely had something going on. I don't know whether it's had a neck break here or here. I don't know, but there's definitely spray work. It's had work done.
Well, I can see, yeah.
There's no question. So this guitar is, compared to all the other stuff we've seen so far, this guitar's messed around. The bridge isn't original. The rest is. But it's a hell of a nice guitar to play. It's beautiful action, skinny neck. You know, and quite, you know, quite acoustic. You know, quite loud. Quite
nice.
But, you know, not common. Not common, but not, you know, because it's not a Gibson Les Paul, not particularly valuable either. But lovely to have. Lovely to have.
And also, really interesting scratch plate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, so the knobs, interesting. Most interesting things are these tuning pegs.
Can I just cut in here, Bob? Because I know you are the man of knowledge, and I am not least because I come from Essex, but many other reasons as well. But I do know one thing, that Guild are basically Epiphone. All the workers from Epiphone formed Guild.
Right.
So there may be some appointments on here which are left over from the Epiphone legacy.
You could be right. I mean, there's certainly workmanship in here that is kind of like it.
And there were Italians, apparently. A lot of Italians.
These machine heads appear on no other guitar.
Right. Sort of ornate Cluson tuners.
Yeah, but with these, particularly, it's these plastic tuning pegs. And so, you know, if one of your tuners goes wrong on a Vintage Guild M75, you've got a hard time ahead of you.
Wow. Because I noticed these. I think I've seen these on an old Guild Archtop that my friend has.
Probably.
And yeah, and my friend who's a connoisseur on Guilds, he told me that they were all Italian guys in New York?
Yeah.
And they built these, and they were originally the Epiphone factory. And when Epiphone moved to Gibson's
sold
factory,
to Gibson, many of the people were laid off.
Yeah, and they went to Guild instead.
Yeah. Yeah. That would figure.
So
you know, there you go. That's
a beautiful guitar.
Nice. Bit more of a mongrel, that one, but still good.
Can I just say they've reissued this guitar?
Yes.
But it's got a different vibe, this one, to the reissues, I think. I don't know if you've played some of the reissues.
No, I haven't. Somebody told me there was one in a local shop that I could try, but I mean, my first question is, are the reissues still hollow? Because this is a very hollow guitar.
Yeah, that's the point I was making. I think this is more hollow.
Yeah.
The reissues are still hollow, but...
Chambers.
Yeah. I reckon more chambers.
Right, this case should be silver. In fact, I can show you. It should be that colour.
Is this the original?
That's the original, okay? But that area there took me 4 afternoons in the garden with a scalpel.
Right.
I gave up.
You gave up.
Right, because some idiot a long time ago painted this with black emulsion paint, which is impossible to take off. Right, but your viewers will know, if they're looking at that, they know what they're looking at already. You're looking at...
Maybe some viewers can give us some tips of a chemical that Bob can put on
that. Would be very welcome. Or if anybody wants to waste a couple of months for no money. So this is a 60s. This is a 67 Rickenbacker 360-12.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
This is in what they call jet glow, but normal people call black. 2 toaster pickups. Sharp eyes will notice that I've got the strings the other way round to the way Rickenbacker have them. Rickenbacker have the big strings on the bottom end. I've got this like a acoustic 12 string. I prefer the sound. Does play havoc with the nut.
So why is that then? Why did they do it the other way around?
I think they wanted the guitar to sound a bit more bassy. I like this to sound more like a 12 string, and if your pick hits the thinner strings first, which means it's a brighter sound.
Right.
It's pretty subtle, but you know. But it's got that jangle.
It certainly has.
Stereo.
Was that on all of them?
This Rico sound thing came standard with this model of guitar. With the higher end Rick guitars, it came standard. Interesting things, like the pickups are actually mounted on rubber grommets, which have obviously long since kind of crystallised. But the other thing to say about this is that this guitar is a factory refin. But I think what happened is this got to quality control in the factory, and it wasn't passed. This used to be sunburst, red sunburst, or fire glow as they call it. You can tell that because there's fire glow underneath it. There, and there's a little bit of red there. Right? But this guitar has been like this for a very, very long time, and you see the way it's finished around there. This is very unlikely to be a refin. This is a factory second, I suppose you'd call it.
Right.
And, you know, again, these guitars are made to this day, but if you play a modern Rickenbacker, it feels very, very hard compared to one of these. The sides of the neck seem to be very steep. So,
and the thing about Rickenbackers is they have kind of varnish, don't they, on the fretboard?
Yeah, and this one does, yeah. And then these wonderful, you know, crushed crystal triangular inlays. Beautiful.
It's a work of art, isn't it?
Distinctive guitar. Great psychedelic guitar.
The birds.
And the birds. This is a 1961-62. The body's November 61 and the neck is February 62. Fender Strat in an unusual colour, rare colour, custom colour, shoreline gold. The viewers will... they'll go, well, that's very dark yellow for a shoreline. It should be much more sort of coffee colour. And they'd be right. What's happened is that the top coat here has really yellowed. As you can see, the guitar's had some wear. It's got checking all over it, wear like that. The neck has had some wear as well. When I got this guitar, it was filthy, and I've cleaned this neck systematically over the time. I got this in 1974. I paid £180 for it. It's worth a great deal more than that today. The Fender logo's been chewed on the neck. It's got quite a big neck for a Strat. It's got a great tone, really fat for a Strat. Plays great. I have had to have it refretted. Everybody has Strats refretted. Original pickups. Back to plastics. You can see one bit of plastic has stayed whiter than the other two. This happens. It's quite common. And we talked about the pickguard shrinkage earlier. But that's it. 61, 62 Strat.
Expect to see more of Bob in the future. I'll tell you what, lastly, let's actually have a look at 2 amps that you've recently acquired. And I actually have 2 of these myself.
You do?
Maybe interesting to talk about these.
So I've had these, what, a couple of years now? Yeah. Mystic Blues, made by a man called Tommy Cougar in Sweden. They're obviously a Dumble style amp, overdrive special style amp. Control layout the same. They're sort of trying to be Dumbles to an extent, but they're not trying to be Dumbles all the way, and they're not trying to pass themselves off as a Dumble. You can see they're called Mystic Blues. They're not pretending to be something they're not. They're not trying to pretend to be a £100,000 amp. They're twin channel amps. Most of the drive comes from the preamp. So the power amp is quite powerful and quite clean, lots of headroom. And they are fantastic. They're fantastic. They're both 100 watts, switchable to 50, but I don't know about you. Do you ever switch yours to 50?
Well, I have 150, which I use probably more than the other one. But the 100 one, no, I always keep it on 100. It's more open.
I find the sound switch to 50 it loses a lot. You know?
Yeah, it's more open.
But the other thing is that you know, you think 100 watt amp, you know, that's going to be just devastatingly loud. That's why really important with these kind of amps. And down here you've got a Malaysian built carrier tone and a ported cab, and you've got another of these things. These are, originally they were called Dumbulators, and these are replicas of Dumbulators, and they are basically a device that sits in the amplifier's loop, and it matches the amplifier to whatever effects you have outside, but it also acts as a way of controlling the tone with some bright switches, and this becomes the master volume control. And if you use a calculator with one of these amps, or a Dumbulator with one of these amps, and what you get is you can have the master volume on the amp turned up really high, which is important for tone, because for some reason, I don't know why, when they designed them, there's a capacitor across the master volume, so the tone of the amp changes with volume. So the sound you want out of the amp is with the volume somewhere between midday and 2 o'clock, which is going to be loud. This loop acts as an external master volume, not an attenuator, but the master volume control, and it really works. So you can get a beautiful overdriven sound out of these amps at really quite controllable volume, which is the holy grail. Normally you have to have an amp roaring to get the tone you want. So these amps can roar quite quietly. This one's older, this one's newer, this is a slightly more mellow and vintage voice, slightly more recessive, this one's a little more in your face. Ramon prefers this one. At the moment I play this one more. It's just a matter of taste, but they're beautiful, beautiful amps.
Great. Fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, Bob, let's meet again soon for a catch-up, but this was really cool to see your vintage guitars. I'm sure the Guitar Show fans are going to love this, and let's hope they comment, and any questions, maybe you can reply to some of the comments, you know.
Well, I'd like to. You know? Hopefully it hasn't been too dull.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, cheers then, Bob.
Bye.
All the best.